Amy Coney Barrett is likely to become the next Supreme Court justice, unfortunately. And so she was asked some important questions by Kamala Harris, who actually is pretty good at asking questions. One of them happens to be about climate change. Here's how that entire interaction happened.
Do you accept that COVID-19 is infectious?
I think, yes, I do accept that COVID-19 is infectious, that's something of which I feel like, we could say you take judicial notice of. It's an obvious fact, yes.
Do you accept that smoking causes cancer?
I'm not sure exactly where you're going with this, but, the notice that smoking causes.
The question is what it is. You can answer it if you believe. Yes or no.
Senator Harris, yes, every package of cigarettes warns that smoking causes cancer.
And do you believe that climate change is happening and it's threatening the air we breathe and the water we drink?
Senator, again, I was wondering where you were going with that. You have asked me a series of questions that are completely uncontroversial, like whether COVID-19 is infectious, whether smoking causes cancer, and then trying to analogize that to eliciting an opinion on me that is a very contentious matter, opinion from me that is on a very contentious matter of public debate. And I will not do that. I will not express a view on a matter of public policy, especially one that is politically controversial, because that's inconsistent with the judicial role, as I have explained.
Thank you, Judge Barrett. And you've made your point clear that you believe it's a debate.
All right, so look, Kamala Harris is a cop. But that helps her because she asks some pretty good questions there in order to try to get her to basically say, that she believes that climate change is, quote unquote, debatable. Now, that's to prove the point that it is not. Because over 99% of scientists agree that climate change is happening and that human beings have contributed, at least in some part, to it. And so that is not debatable. The science is fairly clear. The consensus is clear on the issue of climate change. Again, what varies is degree. Now, it's not a controversial thing, and this is my point. It's not a controversial thing unless you're either ignorant of the science, which can be fixed with knowledge, or if you're pushing a certain political agenda. And from her answer, we know that we know where she's coming from. All right. So now by calling it politically controversial, she's basically adopting the language crafted by lobbyists and by the industry in order to, of course, muddy the waters so that we can't actually do anything about climate change, which would affect these companies' bottom line, their profit margins. And so that's the situation here. And I do appreciate when Kamala Harris is able to cut through that bullshit in order to kind of expose them for who they are. And look, we've known climate change is a thing for a long time. Scientists back in 1827 were saying, hey, turns out if we put a bunch of carbon into the atmosphere, things might get a little warmer. It will prevent heat from going back and out into space, which warms up the planet. And so that's what we're doing here. And of course, unfortunately, profit motives got in the way. Back in the 1970s, researchers at Royal Dutch Shell, Exxon Mobil, and other oil companies, they confirmed that climate change is happening, and they warned executives about it. The executives buried it. We know that. They hired people from the cigarette industry, which is why she asked that question, hey, do cigarettes cause cancer? Well, they literally had people out there saying, no, it causes cancer. No, the science is not settled on that. They're using the exact same playbook, only instead of course, dealing with millions of people that have gotten cancer as a result of smoking cigarettes, we're dealing with the possible end of human civilization within the next 100 years as a result of instability in the climate. Increased floods, fires, storms, things like that. And so those are pretty big issues. Mass migrations. All of these negative effects that are coming down the pike and that are actually also happening now. Again, you look at California with its increased wildfires, wildfire season lasting a lot longer than it used to. affecting all these different places. And it's not a result, by the way, of poor forest management, because, I mean, we still had the same level of forest management before, and then things started getting worse, and it's not because forest management got worse, right? It's not because we were raking the forest less. It's because there's a significant change in the climate, making dry season that much drier and lasting that much longer. And so that's the problem with climate change, okay? That's the problem here. And what she is doing is she is basically saying, well, the science is just not settled. No, it's definitely settled. You are lying. She is an ideologue, and she is a grifter, and that's who Amy Coney Barrett is. And I've got more information to back that up, by the way. Less than 2 weeks before our confirmation hearings began, the Supreme Court agreed to hear an appeal by oil giants over lawsuits by cities seeking to hold the companies liable for climate damages. The firms, including BP and Royal Dutch Shell, want to move the suits from state to federal courts, where the industry expects more favorable rulings. And now tell me, why would they expect more favorable rulings from the Supreme Court? Oh, right, because they're pushing Amy Coney Barrett. I mean, look, we've already got a conservative Supreme Court. Getting her confirmed would mean a supermajority, 6-3, and we know the direction that she's going to go in. In fact, she has familial ties with the oil industry. Barrett's father, a Catholic deacon and former attorney, Mike Coney, said in his church's website that most of his legal career was spent as an attorney for Shell. In fact, Barrett included the Anglo-Dutch oil behemoth 7 times in her recusal list that guides her work as a judge in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit, which she submitted to the Senate for her questionnaire. The list works as part of the court's automatic recusal system to help identify potential conflicts of interest. She's got that conflict of interest. Will she recuse herself? Would she have to? Not necessarily. I mean, she probably wouldn't. In fact, she said this, it's always up to the individual justice, but it always involves consultation with the colleagues with 8 other justices, so that's not a question that I can answer in the abstract, meaning that basically she is dodging the question and will likely probably not recuse herself on issues involving oil companies and or climate change. They know. And by the way, the oil companies know that she's going to rule favorably. In fact, that's why the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is pushing her. In fact, they endorsed her nomination last month and began lobbying lawmakers to confirm her to the bench. They know exactly what Amy Coney Barrett is about. They know she's bought because they paid for her. That's what she paid. That's what they paid for. And so we know exactly where she's going to go, how she's going to rule on these things. We know that she's probably not going to recuse herself. And so I think the only way to save human civilization is to pack the courts in order to nullify the conservative effect. Because, again, at this point, if you don't pack the courts full of justices that will uphold climate regulation, well, I mean, again, we don't have a future if we don't. Pack the courts. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.